Welcome everybody back to Veil of Sound Video Interview Sunday, and we're very happy to have another very important guest because we always say we're lifting the veil of underground music. He has a project called Oahk, O-A-H-K. Not enough people listen to it, and therefore we gotta lift this veil. Bryan Ziolkowski, thanks for being on the show with us.
How you doing, Thorsten?
I'm doing fine. It's 9 o'clock. The wife is gone. The kid's asleep.
So it's nice and dark there.
Yeah, at the moment. Yeah, in a few weeks we'll have a dog. I figure then that's not possible anymore. But we'll see. But where are we catching you right now, Bryan?
So I'm in central New Hampshire in the United States.
Okay, so you're at home basically, right?
Yeah, basically at home. Yeah.
Okay, so apart from being a one-man project leader, writer, and everything, I figure, and we all know that with the music that most people of us listen to, you cannot make a living. So what do you do for a living, Bryan?
So right now I do property maintenance. I actually run my own property maintenance business. I started it about a year and a half ago. I was a auto mechanic for about 18 years, and just with everything that we sort of had gone through, and I guess we'll probably get into a little bit more in the road, but we started to do like the adoption process to get into adopting an infant, and you gotta have time. A lot of flexibility with time, and it just didn't seem to work a 7:30 to 5 job 5 days a week. It's rough.
So, but from everything that I see on your Facebook account and everything else, I figure that you're a pretty good craftsman generally, right?
Yep. Yeah, just basically the things that I enjoy doing. Basically been doing all the work on my own house for the past 10 years. So you kind of learn the tricks of the trade, and, just getting creative as much as possible, actually.
Well, I figure that being a self-employed craftsman also means that you have control over your time, your business, and everything. Is that also in a way reflected in your project in Oahk? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, like, you do everything yourself.
Yep. Everything. So as far as Oahk itself, everything comes down to me as far as the music, the vocals, and everything. I write everything. So even if my wife is on a track, it's something that I had wrote for her specifically, because she did vocals on a song on my first album. I didn't have her on the second one, but hopefully in the future we'll try to get some more stuff. But yeah, it's nice to have the full creative. I'm trying to think of the right word for it.
Creative control?
I guess in a sense, creative control, or just the fact of like pushing my limits, just as an individual coming up with stuff. Because when you're in a band, you can bounce a lot of ideas off of everybody, or somebody. It's like, hey, that's really cool, but hey, change this note here. When you're in your own project, you have to kind of force yourself out of your own comfort zone sometimes. And I do, try to find myself doing that, but I do seem to slip into that little area of what feels good. But I guess that's what really Oahk is I guess it's where my comfort zone is. It's what basically comes off the top of my head.
Well, you say it as if it's a negative thing. What comes off at the top of your head? It's what comes off at the top of your head sounds very good.
Yeah,
And,
it's not a negative thing. It's just there's sometimes when you're trying to be creative and you want to try to push yourself in a I don't know, you just feel like the ideas kind of sound too similar. It's nice sometimes having someone to do that, but with not having someone, you kind of are restricted in a sense to your own mindset. But I don't have to worry about anybody, as far as like playing shows. It's I check in with the wife and say, hey, how's this date sound? And she's like, great, sounds good. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Does she then also go on the road with you?
So I don't really do too much touring, just because of my work schedule. Originally, with being a mechanic, it's really tough because I was actually the head diagnostic for all the German cars that we worked on. So
German cars don't have any problems, right?
Come on now, buddy. Domestic German cars have just as much issues as domestic cars, so we'll say that.
I know. I just being a German, I have to be proud of our engineering at one point or another.
You guys are on top of your engineering, but you don't figure things out first, and then you wait for Toyota to say, "Hey, these guys finally figured this out. Let's go take this this technology and make it good."
German cars, they can be very, very, very good, and they can be very, very, very shitty. I've driven a lot of them, so I know my way around. Let's talk about the record, about Tiny Husks.
Yes.
First of all, I although I think I got a lot of the stuff figured out, but what does the title try to tell us? Where does the title come from?
So the title actually comes from, so we basically had two really big miscarriages that had happened in our lives. The first one had happened in August of 2018, and then I basically used that grieving process to write my first record, Apex Wound. And Apex Wound is basically my way of coping with that first miscarriage, which we actually lost our son at 19 weeks. So second trimester, we were yeah, it's pretty late, so it really hurt us a lot. So my wife had a hard time with the grieving process, still really grieving in a sense to this day. And my way to try to pull through was to basically, my music that I've been writing for years and years and years by myself, I was like, I need to do something with this. I need to sit, because there's sometimes with grief where you don't want to talk to somebody. You don't want to bounce those ideas off of somebody. You want to sit and reflect in your own stew of consciousness. And that was that writing process. And I wanted to try to reflect the like claustrophobic feel of going through that process with that album. And, production wise, it just feels like everything is suffocating you a little bit. Like there's just a lot of feedback that is almost more punching through the music itself at times. So with Tiny Husks, or I guess in that sense, in the sense of where I was going with my second record when writing it, I wanted to do something at that point of taking where I was at that time, which was around, I'd say about 3 months after that album came out, I started writing for my next release. And I guess it was around December that we actually miscarried again on Christmas Eve. So that one wasn't as late. It was about eight or 9 weeks, but it's still something that when you go through something at 19 weeks, you don't ever want to go through that again. So it was like, well, where do I go from here? Like the next record was supposed to kind of be this positive thing because we were trying again. We wanted to like kind of put that behind us in a sense that we were still dealing with the grief, but we wanted to actually, in a sense, see where we were going to go. And for me personally,
forward, right?
Yeah, move forward. So in my eyes, Tiny Husks was supposed to be a positive record, a record of reflection, a record of moving forward. And with
when you started writing it, right?
When I started writing it, and the first song I started writing off of that was Great Monarch. And that was actually, we had taken our son's ashes up to the top of Mount Washington, which is it's the second largest mountain on the East Coast, on the Appalachian Trail. And we were going to basically spread his ashes up where we got married, because we actually got married up on Mount Washington. And when we were kind of sitting there, and we basically had a monarch butterfly fly in front of us, and it was like maybe this isn't the right idea. Like maybe we need to hold on to him. So that song was the first kind of like reflection, in a sense, of the pain being something positive to sort of look forward to. And then from that point, we had the miscarriage on Christmas Eve, and it felt like taking a step backwards. So the album basically starts off with the opening track, Lost Backwards, because even though my vision
back, right?
it's like taking a step back. So just kind of it just sets you back, and then it was like, okay, so where do I go? Like, I had this plan to kind of take this positivity that I wanted to try to bring to it, and it kind of got stripped away. So I sort of had to go through a lighter grieving process again. So that's where I started to then struggle with, getting older and wanting to have kids. And then it was this battle of the grief, the loss, and here I am getting older. Like, Tiny Husks is a reflection of our shells of our bodies that, they let us down, with my wife blaming herself with, it's my body's fault that I miscarried. And it's like, no, it's not. It's like some bad things happen to good people, and it's just, it happens. So I tried to reflect in a sense of the two losses that we had, and just the idea of feeling like time's against me. I'm getting older and feel my body like shutting down, especially with a lot of the hard labor that I do. It really beats you up. And I was like just thinking of where to go with that. And it was like, for some reason, I just kept thinking like husks, like a husk of a person. My children are husks of people, because they're not with us. And the tiny part basically is a celebration of the children that we lost. So the Tiny Husks is my family that's not with me, and me and my wife. Sometimes we feel like husks of people. I guess that's the best way to get around to it.
I know that we already talked about that privately, but isn't that also, in a way, apart from all the loss that you and your wife had to go through, isn't that also, like you said, you spoke about a celebration, isn't that also a positive thing to take from it, that I'm also at a loss for words, but isn't
That's
there
okay,
also
buddy.
a celebration that you and your wife started it again, did it again, and then of course all that negativity that came from us, but that there is a certain love that you created, bodily love,
Absolutely.
corporeal love.
There's a lot of personal stuff too that, I look at losing Charlie, who we lost him at 19 weeks. When we lost Charlie, it kind of was a catalyst of, what am I doing with my life at this point? What am I doing with whatever music project I'm in, whatever art that I'm creating? What am I doing? And my wife felt the same thing. We moved from Baltimore, Maryland up here about 6 years ago. We moved up in 2016. It was a very tumultuous year as far as like politically here. The landscape was a bit nuts. So
let's not get started.
Yeah, no, I agree. But with having that happen, it makes you reevaluate everything that you thought as you were as a person. and it allowed me to do something musically for myself that was just me. I was the one that's in control. I'm the one that basically is quality control in every part of the vision that I have. So I do all the art, like all the artwork is from myself. I do all the production, the mixing, basically everything that's Oahk is me. And my wife took her life, and from moving up here, she had to basically, she was a vocal and piano instructor for years and years and years. So she lost all those students back in Maryland, and basically was working at a hotel as a a front desk receptionist. And when we lost Charlie, she basically said, like, fuck this, like I need to do what I love. And her dream was to be a hairstylist. So she said, fuck it.
Somebody that wouldn't work for me, right?
She would make you look amazing, buddy. More amazing than you already look. She'd tighten up that beard a little bit. But she it was her big catalyst to go to school, and now she's a hairstylist. And there is some good that can come from pain, grief, heartache, and yeah.
I know that not from my marriage, but from my mom, who also lost a few children before her and my dad got me. But she also said, like, that was never a question between the two of them, that, like, are we going to stop now? And whenever I talk to you, I also have a feeling that no, you're not stopping. And I think that is also a very, very positive thing to take from it, isn't it?
It is. It definitely takes a bit of time to get to that point where you want to start trying again. It definitely probably took, I think it was a little over a year for us to get to the point where it was like, I never want to go through that again. And, the whole reasoning for it happening was, it was out of our control. Like, he was completely healthy. Part of the placenta had broken off, and we had to basically give birth to a child that we knew that was going to not make it. So that's the real tough part is, being there and having her being induced into labor and having to be by her side. And I guess the best way to, like, interpret those feelings is on Apex Wound, on the song Bedside. If you actually listen to that song, which it's more of just an instrumental track, but that's the feeling of that moment of just, yeah, it's rough.
So Apex Wound and Tiny Husks is your way of coping. That's clear by now. But
yes.
How does Cynthia, how does your wife feel or react to you writing and performing songs about two of the most intense and two of the most negative experiences of her life as well, of course?
She absolutely loves it. As far as it's kind of like I don't want to say like a ceremonial type thing, but it is ceremonial in my eyes. When I play live, I basically, it's just me and a guitar with a couple amps, and I try to build this moment in the moment, a loose structure of what songs I'm going to play, and basically allow it to be what it is, to be able to push and grieve in that moment, to release that stuff. So when she doesn't really listen to the music too much on her own, but she does listen to it here and there, and she'll, dabble around and play piano to it and stuff like that. But she does come in and see some of the shows live, but it's always a really tough thing for her because it's such an emotional release for me. And then she knows that the songs are about her and our children. So it's an even more emotional release for her, that sometimes she just has a hard time coping with that. But in all, it's very powerful for her, and it's very powerful in the sense of something that she needs. So I guess that's the best answer to your question. I can't say that she
it is.
fully enjoys it, but she
Well, let's be clear. You can never enjoy something like that. You can
no,
never
it's
enjoy
tough.
being recalled of such a moment. That is clear.
And don't we all love listening to depressing music, right?
That is always a question. I would answer it in a way that one of my favorite bands from my hometown in Cologne once had a song that said, I don't want to talk to you to know what you're feeling, just play a song. And I think there is something to it. You know, when you come into a room and it's Blitzkrieg Bop or Sheena as a punk rocker, then you know that that person is having a good mood. And when you come in and you hear somebody playing Hurt, no matter if it's the Johnny Cash version or the original version, you know that
9 Inch Nails.
he's not in the best of moods, right? Yeah, you say 9 Inch Nails. Remember, Reznor said that now that song isn't his anymore.
I know.
And I think there's something to that. Just one more question about you and your wife, because let's be clear. So many couples are being divided over time by their individual coping mechanisms. So you and your wife have different coping mechanisms, but can either accept the others or support the others?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, I would say that both of our coping mechanisms have sort of helped each other out. As far as, for me, putting it into the music, it's given her something to kind of like, sometimes the emotions build up in you and you need to explode and just let it erupt. And that allows her to do that in that sense of listening back to some things. And for me, with her coping mechanisms, we're still trying to figure those out with therapy and work and things like that. For me, her coping mechanism is also a learning experience on my side. And it's brought us so much closer together because I guess in a sense, it's like when you look at like people that have gone to war together and you go through a traumatic experience.
That's a very good description.
It's a traumatic experience. So it just brings you so much closer to somebody. And I mean, to me, there is no Bryan without Cynthia. Like it's the way, everything's intended to be. It's the way nature intended it to be.
So then, to close off that chapter, then Tiny Husks is also a celebration of your love for your wife, isn't it?
It is. And it marks to our step into the adoption process. So the songs Past Home, Future Home, that kind of was like marking where we were at with the adoption process. Now, unfortunately, we had to basically decide not to go that route, just for the fact that the company that we were working with, it's very expensive and they do not make you feel like you are worth their time, worth your money.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like, I feel like if you're trying to adopt a baby, you should make that couple feel like they're the most important people in the world. And when you feel like you're just a number with hundreds of other people, then it's like, what's going on?
But you are then going to try adoption through a different company, aren't you?
No, we're actually we're going to be trying to actually have. Well, we have been trying to go the route of, we're doing hormone therapy right now, and then basically just got to take it step by step to try to do things by ourselves.
Lighten up your mood. The result of such a therapy.
Hey, very proud.
Yeah, my dad was too. Now I'm getting watery.
It's okay, buddy. Hey, emotions.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Emotions bring us closer together.
Yeah, that's just an ocean between us. But one question that I have to ask, and now we come to the musical side of the record, because for everybody who has not listened to Tiny Husks, the background story to Tiny Husks, as you now have heard and listened and maybe watched, it's very emotional. But the music and what Bryan gives us on that record is, and I'm not lacking for a better word, is miraculously awesome. I have
Thank
not
you.
been touched by a record that way in a very long time. And just like our common buddy Josh, shout out to England, um, uh, I'm very sure that Tiny Husks will be in my top 10 this year, just because it's an amazing album.
That feels so good to hear
Yeah.
that. 'Cause
And now to come to that music, there is so much on that record. So let's get to the writing and recording process. Where and how do you write and record your stuff? At home, or do you go to a studio?
no, everything's written here. Different songs can be written different ways. Some are, because when you write as a solo artist, a lot of times, like, you can't sit in a room with a full band and flesh out ideas. So you have to basically sometimes build a song from scratch, whether it be a guitar melody, a vocal melody, or even sometimes I'll beatbox like a beat and record it on my phone while I'm in my car somewhere that I'm not there, or sometimes even a guitar melody will pop in my head. So when it comes to the recording process, especially Tiny Husks, that I was basically working on that for about 2.5 to 3 years. Like I said, right a little bit after I'd finished Apex Moon, I started writing for Tiny Husks. For Lost Backwards on that, for the opening track, that was basically a pieced together song where I had the melody for the guitar and just basically building layers and layers on top of that, and then allowing that to then see what would fit vocally, what would, really trying to build something. And I wanted to do something with a lot of vocal layers towards the end. I'm really very, very inspired by Oh Brother, the band, an amazing Georgia band, and I wanted to do something that was kind of similar to some of their like vocal chants. So that was kind of the idea of that. And then you have other songs that Tiny Husks, the song was written. The first time I ever wrote it was 2 days before I had a live stream, and I basically came up with like the melody while I was practicing for that live stream. So I sort of came up with the melody and wrote how I was feeling off the top of my head, and the lyrics have pretty much stuck to that. So that live stream was the first version of that to ever come out. Yeah, it's stuff like that. It's just then putting, drums to where it needs to be. Works for a recorded piece of music rather than live, because the live versions of all these songs are very stripped down because it's just me and guitar, and I don't do a loop pedal. So it's all in real time. Everything's built off the dynamics of, just what's going through. So I can control the intensity of the guitar with how heavy I pick, or how much like reverb I can kind of punch into it. So yeah, Tiny Husks was a bit of a learning curve to try to create something by myself that flowed very well. And I had I wanted to do a vinyl, so I also wanted it to feel like two sides. There's basically side A is the lost side, the side of that whole reflection of losing two children. And then the side B basically is how do I sort of rebuild from this? How do I try to find some kind of hope, and where am I going?
Which is still, you talk about sides, but I still have the feeling that everything flows together.
It does too. I wanted to do still because, like, I guess maybe in the future I might want to try to do like a CD version, and anything that's really meant for like a CD format, you can do in a long format because you can make it play out, for up to 80 minutes on a CD. So to be able to have something that you can cut into 4 songs here and 4 songs here, but also have it set up for 8 in the sense that it can play through as one piece is another thing. And that was sort of what I was going for. I guess in a sense, Planning for Burials Below the House is a big inspiration to the way something that works as 2 sides, but also works as a whole.
I'm smiling because I'll come to Tom and his project later. Your music is a wonderful bastard of shoegaze, avant-garde, black metal, a little bit of industrial, and lots more. You've already mentioned Planning for Burial. Can you name a few other musical influences on your work? Not everything, because then I know how eclectic your taste is. Otherwise, we'll be sitting here for 2 hours.
So I did write down some stuff. These are I basically went off the top of my head on things because I like you said, we all can go on for days and days. But basically, biggest influence to me, and these are the bands and artists that have kind of changed me as a person and made me kind of be more self-reflective. But Neurosis has been a big one. ISIS, Placebo, Oh Brother. Yeah, a little surprise, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
No, Placebo. So I don't know if you've noticed, but I have a thing for, it's a thing for hooks. I love pop music, and I love 90s alternative music.
Let me guess, your favorite album by Placebo is Sleeping with Ghosts.
Wrong.
Ooh, so which one is it?
I don't have a favorite. Okay, Placebo for a band is one of those bands where I don't love every album, but every album has 6 songs that I love more than everything else.
I would say that I understand where you're coming from, but to me, Black Market Music? Black Market Music is my favorite by them, I would say.
Okay, well, I got you in the future because, like, I don't know, Placebo has always been a place in my heart. My wife fucking hates him. She hates Brian Molko's voice.
It's not the voice. I tried watching them twice, and I cannot stand looking at the guy. But
he's so beautiful.
I closed my eyes, and then it was all good.
I love his image. I dig what he's going for right now with the long hair and the mustache. Like,
no, don't get me wrong. It's not the way that he dresses.
It's just the voice with the look.
No, with voice and looks, I got rid of thinking like that because of Coheed and Cambria back in the day. No, it's the way that he acts. It's very
okay. It's pompous. Yeah.
That is something that I don't like on stage. That's also one of the few things which I sometimes hate about Tool shows. Sometimes I think Maynard just overdoes it. And I watched a live stream by Pucifer, and it made me nearly pucifer.
But Pucifer is an amazing project. I love the project. I like seeing Maynard go in that industrial area, especially because he collaborated with Trent Reznor on the song Potions, which was kind of like a cool little, like, Trent Reznor is one of my all-time favorite artists, and I guess at this point composers.
Composer, definitely.
I would say he's going to be one of the greatest composers of the 20th century.
I'm pretty sure that in 20, 30 years, when we will be talking about composers, we will probably say Mancini, Williams, Reznor, unfortunately Zimmer, because I don't like a lot of his stuff, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's go on. I cut you off after Placebo.
Okay. So we got Neurosis, Placebo, Isis, Oh Brother, of course. Thrice. Huge later Thrice fan. I love everything after. So when Vihisu came out, everything onwards, I just felt like they just kept becoming a better band. I'm a sucker.
There I'm on your Placebo side. I love everything. I'm a huge fanboy.
I love pop music, and one of the most inspirational pop artists, love Lorde. Lorde, I felt, especially Pure Heroin, is one of the greatest albums to come out in the past 30 years. I can't say enough good things about it. And then I got to throw Nine Inch Nails in there as just being one of the first bands, especially like seeing the video for Closer as a kid. I was born in 87, so I kind of grew up in that mid 90s era of MTV, and it was like, whoa, my pure good brain is tainted with this, pighead and just like this dirty sex of like dirt, I guess.
Yeah, and also, I mean, like, it fits perfectly, right?
Yeah. And then I guess
played that song to my wife first. She was like, "Don't ever play it to me again if you want to have."
Oh, but the drum beat is so catchy.
Yeah,
it's such a pop beat.
My wife comes more from a Motown side, so.
Oh, okay. She would get along with my wife. My wife actually used to sing for a R&B Motown project.
Similarity.
And then I would guess the last little inspiration is a little. I don't want to call them a butt rock band, but I love them. Blue October.
Oh wait! They had a song on that American Pie soundtrack, didn't they?
Did they?
I think on one of them. Okay, I know it's like college rock, right?
Yeah. It's like college rock, but I really like the fact of I like a good hook, I like a good catch,
yeah.
And I like something that just is a little bit different than what's out there. And I got into them when their Foiled album came out, which had the song "Hate Me" on it, and it was just something I'd never heard before. It just sounded different, and I don't know. I've been a fan ever since. I love everything they put out. Mm-hmm. So they've been more of a singer-songwriter type band because the lead singer of that band writes all the music. So it's just kind of that singer-songwriter of myself that kind of sees what other singer-songwriters are doing, and I take influence to it.
I'm surprised that you didn't mention more artists from the Flenser label. I would have guessed that because you fit. I mean, like, musically, you would fit perfectly on that roster, and
that would be a dream. I wish that so I love Flenser, and I'm very inspired by a lot of the Flenser bands. But when I think of what influences me the most, I think back to what built me as a musician. What the thing, like, because the music that I play has always been kind of this similar, structure. And I've been writing music for the past 15 to 18 years, I would even say. And I really got to go back to what really inspired me as an artist and what kind of, I don't know, like when I listen to a lot of popular, not really popular stuff, but a lot of the stuff that your underground mainstream kind of is attacking right now. And I don't really feel like a lot of it is super accessible. Like, in a sense, I feel like what I write with Oahk is a little bit more accessible melody wise, vocal delivery wise, maybe not the actual the lyrics, but I don't know. I feel like that's my love for things written in 4/4, keep it simple.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that is something that you very often do not have on the Flenser, right?
Very, very experimental.
Very, very experimental. I mean, like, think of a band like Wreck and Reference.
Oh my gosh!
Being on the same label as Jill's Corey, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, but you self-released your record.
Yes.
How is the label going itself? Is it only Oahk, or would you also do other artists on Deciduous Records? I hope I pronounced it correctly.
It's Deciduous Records.
Okay.
So I don't just do just Oahk. Right now, I'm more or less focusing on just Oahk on the label. I've released probably, I've got them right here. I've got all my tapes that I've put out. I'd say maybe 12 to 15 bands that I've kind of put out. But putting stuff out on a label is very expensive, very time consuming, and there's not a lot of satisfaction in it. So you get beat down very fast of saying like, oh, this is great. Like you reach out to an artist, and I only put out stuff that I would listen to. I only put out stuff that I truly would stand behind. And for one, there's not a lot out there that's not already picked up by, you know, a label or something, or, you know, a lot of people nowadays are self-releasing things. So it's one of those things where it is tough to put out the stuff that you really want to put out. So it's very slim in like the time frames of like, okay, like 5 months will go by and then I'll release something else. But right now it's more or less kind of Oahk for a bit. I've got maybe one release coming out in September from an artist, 7YYY, and that's it's like a blackened shoegaze project from a friend of mine in New Hampshire. So
one thing that I haven't asked you, but I have to ask, Oahk, why that different spelling?
Because if you were to use Oahk, never find the music project. So for me, so the reason why it's Oahk though is, so I have a visual arts moniker named Oakseeder. So it's OAKSEEDER. And that's where all of my visual arts come from, my photography, my collage work, my video work. So from that, I had basically a couple friends just kind of refer to me as Oahk. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a catchy name. Because also too, like, I have a hard time remembering bands to have more than 2 words in their band name. I have a slight dyslexia, so it winds up being like this really confusing thing. So I'm like trying to come up with a project name, and I was like, well, what about Oahk, or like, you know, a tree or something? And how can we make it different that when you search for it, because Bandcamp is horrendous trying to find an artist on there sometimes. So it was like, how do I try to fix that? So it was more or less trying to find a way to spell that works together, and I guess, you know, is, in my eyes, I try to look at things and say, is this like iconic in a sense? Like this name, this visual, for me, if I look at this, is this kind of iconic in my eyes? And that's why I went with that.
So you basically were looking for a homophone.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is totally fine. When we already talked about Deciduous Records, if anybody is watching, what must the band have to get your attention?
It's got to be something I like. It's got to be, I'm very open to all genres. I like basically people that want to push the boundaries of where they want to go as a musician, because the whole point in naming it Deciduous Records is I wanted to keep it, I'm very connected to nature. I'm very connected with especially trees, with moving up to New Hampshire. We're surrounded by old trees, you know. And what I kind of was like, I want to be behind things that grow. I want to be behind artists that want to grow musically. I want to myself grow as a musician. So I went with deciduous because deciduous trees, they die off in the winter. The leaves fall. Then they kind of grow back, and they either grow back sometimes stronger, more vibrant. It depends on the environment around you. So that's where, you know, where that sort of comes from. So really any artist that just, if it sounds good and I fucking love it, I'll put it out, you know.
Okay. So if you could cover any song you like, not thinking about profits or rights to do that and so on. If you could cover any song that you like, which one would you cover and why?
Well, I have covered one song. The one song I have covered is Swans and the song Helpless Child off of Soundtracks of the Blind. But if I had to cover a song, which I've been actually kicking around the idea, and this one's for you, Passive Aggressive from Placebo.
Okay. And something else that I also always like to ask our interview partners is if you could curate a one-day festival with Oahk playing and 4 or 5 more bands, which bands would you pick? And let's say it should be active bands, so we don't go back to pink.
No! I can't pick ISIS. Can we say active bands in the sense that they're like on hiatus?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and say it would be me opening, because I don't want to take any position from anybody else, and I have no problem opening to 5 people. So one of my favorite artists right now is Kira McSpice. She's an artist right now. I think she's based out of New York, and she's another artist that would fit perfectly in with the Flenser. It's very haunting, very visceral. It's that whole real doom gloom feeling. So I would have her basically play. I would have, it would be a tie up for this because I got to throw in one Flenser band. I would either have Elizabeth Colorwheel or Street Sex. Have one of those pop in or out. So whatever one I can get. I would have Giant Squid play because I also love a good diverse bill. I hate seeing 5 metal bands play. There's still some hope that Made Out of Babies is going to come back together because they're sort of on a hiatus as well as Giant Squid. And then, yeah, they will. And then I got to have O Brother in there.
So what can we expect next from Oahk? Are you, I mean, like you've already said that it took you like 3 years to come up with Tiny Husks. Are you now saying, okay, I need a rest? Or are you, like so many other people that I've spoken to during and since the pandemic, are you already mentally going on with the next record?
I'm already mentally going on to the next record. Basically, right now, I want to try to set up a little November tour just to get some touring under my belt as far as more long distance stuff. It's tough playing in New England because it's kind of the same people that come out. So get myself out there. But I've already, I think I got 4 or 5 ideas down already for the new album. So I'm trying to do something a little bit more concept based. I'm taking basically what I've gone through and trying to figure out where I want to go with this one. I wanted to kind of, I don't know, the past 2 albums have been very, in a sense of color wise for me, very black, very green, white and cream color. And I want to attack this one with some blue. So I guess my visuals for this is black, blue, gray, I don't know, watery, maybe like more of a watery, flowy feeling, but we'll see what comes about. I got to see too what I want to do live. I've got one song written right now that I've been playing live. It's a little bit more, I guess, upbeat. It's a little faster. So I don't know if you can imagine what that's going to sound like, but we'll see.
So first of all, thanks for all those insights into the record and also to the background story. But of course,
Thank you.
we always end our interviews with our infamous quickfire round. And I'll give you two alternatives. You choose, and maybe with a short explanation, say why.
Excellent.
Let's start off with something easy. Ministry versus Nine Inch Nails.
9 Inch Nails all day. It's Trent Reznor. That's it.
Would there be any artist where you say like, that might beat Reznor?
Oh man. Nah, I can't really. I'd say Placebo is a hard second.
Okay. Giles Corey versus Have a Nice Life.
Have a Nice Life.
That was fast. Being from Baltimore, I have to ask, the Orioles or the Ravens?
I'm gonna go with Orioles for the nostalgia of being a kid going to Camden Yards.
And seeing a team losing.
No. Back when I was a kid, they were a good team. That was Cal Ripken and Brady Anderson. That was the heyday of the Orioles.
Fugazi versus Shellac.
Shellac.
Planning for Burial versus Midwife.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to go with Planning for Burial because that's the project that I heard first. Emotionally, I'm more attached to Midwife, just because it's a song for an unborn son. Really, that hits a spot for me and my wife. So, yeah.
Have you listened to that otherwise unbearable Ed Sheeran? Because he also has a song about losing a child.
I have not.
What is it? Little Bump, I think.
Oh, I'm going to have to check that out. Time to Cry.
Manchester Orchestra or Arcade Fire?
Oh, Manchester.
Lana Del Rey versus Billie Eilish.
I'm going to go with Billie Eilish because I don't listen to much Lana.
The Wire or Cold Case?
I'm going to go with The Wire. I don't really watch it, but it's Baltimore, so got to go with that.
Yeah, and the other one is Philly, right, I think. Stephen King or Lovecraft?
Stephen King. Dark Tower is the best series out there as far as long written series books.
Yeah,
or I guess in a sense.
Yeah.
Oh, the movie? Yeah, no, I wasn't. Yeah, had high hopes.
Yeah, me too. So we come to the last two. Prince or Stevie Wonder?
Prince.
And the last one, The Alchemy Index or Veishu?
Ooh. Alchemy Index. It's all four?
Yeah.
Okay, Alchemy Index. Because I felt like that really pushed them to basically have when Beggars came out. That was pivotal.
Definitely. So, Bryan, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Thorsten.
I hope you still have a great Friday left, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely,
and for
buddy.
everybody else out there, if you haven't listened to Tiny Husks yet, even though we already reviewed it, and even though we cannot say more and better things about the record than we already did, if you haven't listened to it yet, do so. Soon it will be Bandcamp Friday again in September or October or whenever you listen to it. Do it, buy it, love it, and be happy with it. Bryan, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Thorsten. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.